It's April the 27th, 2021, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I'm Gerissar, a PvP Padawan.
Hey everyone, and I'm Andallyn, and welcome finally to the show. These saints have been waiting for us to get our act together, quite literally, for the show. So thank you all as well so much for waiting. We're super excited to bring you this awesome, incredibly distinguished panel. We have Azael. How are you today, good sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Venruki, how are you today as well?
Can't complain. Beautiful day outside. Sunset now, but yeah, it's going well, thanks.
Very nice. And Sodah, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you?
We are great. Gerissar,
Yes.
take us away, man.
I'm so stoked. I don't think we need. Normally we do introductions with, but I don't think we need to. These guys are like the OGs. I don't think anybody doesn't know who Azael, Venruki, or Sodah are. So let's just go. So normally we kind of do an icebreaker, ask what people have been up to since our last show. So that's about 2 weeks ago. So I guess let's start with Azael. What have you been up to these last couple weeks, buddy?
Well, LCS finals happened a couple weeks ago, so had a little bit of time off to relax, which was nice. Been playing some PoE, and honestly just doing a lot of prep for MSI. We have a mid-season invitational coming up for League pretty shortly. It starts in like, I don't know, 8 days, 9 days now. So
Wow.
just a lot of watching VODs of all the different leagues and prepping for the teams. So just getting ready for that.
That's gotta be tough, having to be paid to watch VODs of games of the. How's PoE though? I haven't.
PoE's fun. It's I really like the new league. I mean, I don't play PoE consistently. I play like every couple of years, and then so when I come back, it's kind of overwhelming because there's all the different league mechanics. But I think Ultimatum was a lot of fun, so I've been enjoying it.
All right,
Nice.
sounds awesome. All right, Venruki, what have you been up to this last couple weeks?
The last week I've been playing a lot of Burning Crusade beta, probably exclusively in terms of gaming. And then, of course, prepping for the AWC finals that we have coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to that as well.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's exciting.
So I have a question. When
Sure.
AWC is not happening, when they're doing like say the MDI and that, do you watch that as well? Or
Every once in a while. Sometimes I just, as much as I would like to watch it, and sometimes I do, it's also nice to just have a weekend off. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because
Fair
the
enough.
days sometimes go long for the AWC, so having a weekend off to just chill and do whatever I want is also nice.
totally understand that. I think
There was a funny, there was a funny moment because I've been helping them with the MDI where Nagura was muted 3 times over, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm just doing a Zico cosplay." And I was
Yeah,
just
that's what I was gonna say. It sounds like
It was
Zico.
pretty funny. Yeah, yeah, it was really funny.
I remember watching AWC one day. He muted himself like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
On stream, it's so funny because you just don't hear anything. It's like,
just
like
know
why
what's
is no one
happening.
talking? It's just silent for 5 minutes, and then Zico's just like, damn it!
Yeah.
there's actually, I remember when we started doing AWC from at home, and that was happening, and then for a period of time the chat was actually messing with his head. They start saying, "Zico, you're muted," when he wasn't. So he like mute himself to think he was unmute. It was It was bad. It was bad.
Rascals.
The fun things chat does. Sodah, what have you been up to these last couple weeks?
Yo, honestly, mainly work. Just been trying to get as much stuff as I can completed at work. But also just playing stuff other than WoW, actually. Like, I started playing Stellaris, which is like a Civilization clone, kind of.
Yeah.
Got super addicted to that game, which has been pretty fun. I like playing just random games that, I like trying new stuff, and I've been playing this other one called Enlisted, and it's kind of like Battlefield, and you have your squad. It's like this huge, massive, World War II scenario, like storming the beaches of Normandy, which has been pretty fun. Very immersive game. And then just kind of taking care of my cats. They've been insane lately. I have these 2 cats. They're 1 and 2 years old, and they sprint around the house at 5 a.m. and don't let me sleep, so that's been a nightmare.
Normally cats are kind of crazy to begin with, so I was wondering how you were categorizing them as more insane than what I know cats to already be crazy
Dude,
as.
one of my cats is so hyper. He's a zoomer. He's just I can't control him. He has his own
just
his own
give him
mind.
some Adderall, right? No.
No, dude.
Well, sometimes you get the opposite effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
so
wild.
your work though, you're still on the QA team, right?
I work at Blizzard, but I'm no longer on the QA team.
Okay. My apologies. I thought you're still on the QA team. All right. Well, I won't ask you anything else about that because we're not there for this. But Andallyn, what have you been up to this last couple of weeks?
Man, I've been by day I've been resembling a human being who has a life, and by night I've been gold farming. Back to doing that. So
Oh my
when
gosh.
when I kind of just start to lull on an expansion or like the people I play with are just done, and I hit that lull period for me, I just like, all right, time to farm gold. So been doing that, and let's see, yesterday and today I helped my little brother move 5.5 tons of CrossFit gym equipment into my garage, which was great. Never want to do that again.
Yeah.
And so it's been, we're breeding my dog so that she can have puppies. We did that this week. There's
Wow.
a lot going on.
Yeah.
So
and you hosted your family because your brother got married too, if I remember.
Oh yeah, my little brother got married a week before this. So yeah, it's been busy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And you have time to play. You still have time to gold farm? Holy crap, buddy.
At night.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, how many Monster Energy drinks are you drinking?
I'm a bang kind of person, but yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Well, I'll admit I have not been that busy whatsoever. You make me sad. I've been like super cat. I finally got rating with leashes, so I got Mr. Bigglesworth in game. I'm super proud of that.
Oh wow.
Did you use your Daisy?
Yeah. I got Daisy as soon as
Okay,
as soon as she released, I got her.
Nice.
Yeah, and then so my stepdaughter, she's a super fan of sloths. So as soon as she found out that Daisy got released, she made me log in and show her, and then she went over on her mom's account to then summon Daisy and watch Daisy crawl after her. So she was
awesome.
she get onto the Demon Hunter and fell rush ahead, and then turn around and watch Daisy slowly crawl to reach her. It was kind of funny. It was super
What
cute.
happens if you? I haven't seen it yet. What happens if you get on like an epic mount and Daisy just crawl along for like a year to reconnect?
Yeah, I think so. Like, 'cause she like, so the only way for her to actually travel at your speed is you have to click on her and then do a slash beckon, and then she turns into a buff and hops on your back.
That's
Oh,
Super
cool.
cute.
Yeah.
So this
It is
this
really
begs
cool,
the question: how many daisies does it take to crash a server?
It's like a Terminator sloth. It's inevitable. Get away, but it's crawling. It's coming for you.
Just all through Stormwind, just slow.
Oh my gosh, that's an interesting question. I don't even want to try that. And also, I did another pet battle tournament just last weekend, or I tried to,
That's awesome.
but the PTR was not willing to participate, so we ended up having to end it early, unfortunately. So yeah, I know it's sad, but still pushing forward, still doing it, and trying it again in May. So yeah, actually, talk about a welcoming group of people doing the pet battling community. It's pretty small, but it's growing, and there's some very welcoming people in there, just like in PvP. All right,
There's lots of good people everywhere.
Definitely not.
there's some good people. There's always good people.
There's a couple. There's 5 or 6.
You guys make it sound so bad. No, there's way more than that.
You got guys like Venruki helping a brother out, you know, like that rogue that you gave him a
Yeah.
little tutorial.
Oh yeah, I started watching that. I have to finish that video.
I didn't get a
Yeah,
chance.
it's cool.
That was
We need more of that
Yeah.
in WoW, you know. people willing to help each other out.
Well, I think that's kind of what Classic was. Like everybody talked about was they were so impressed by people helping each other out, and people just randomly, here, take this green that I don't need anymore. The BOEs and stuff like that on the beta. And yeah, I think that's definitely something that is missing from retail nowadays. Right now,
because everything's instanced, right? Like I think that's the biggest thing for me is that when you played Classic, when you played a lot of the older versions of the game, like not only was it like you're playing only against your server, so you got to know people and like see the same people that you're playing with and playing against. You had to actually like physically go places in the game, so you would run into people. It's not just queue up, you're into an instance, pop out, queue for another thing, right? Like whether it's PvE or PvP, that's most of the experience now. So I think that's the biggest difference is it's just harder to like kind of like make those connections with everything instanced in the more recent years. Wow.
I nailed it.
The conveniences kind of take away those connections, right? Like it removes that RPG feeling a little bit. Just the more and more things become convenient, it's kind of funny.
Gratification versus like the satisfaction when you put in more work.
Yeah, and there's almost like a certain bond that you kind of like tacitly feel to someone else who's kind of like gone through that inconvenience. Like, oh man, that was a pain, or like. Like when you encounter someone who's just like you can connect with, be like, yeah, that was really crappy, or that was a heck of a grind. Like there's a certain camaraderie there that I think really helps kind of glue people together as well in that regard, at least socially. So
yeah.
So
all right. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's interesting. Sorry, just to kind of touch on it. I feel like because the game was easier, it also incentivized people to play with people that were way worse than them. Like I noticed that in Classic a lot. Like you could just like pick up a random body for MC, and if they could just press Frostbolt 20 times in a row, then they were good enough to get you in the raid. Whereas like, I feel like it's harder to, if you want to do like a heroic raid or a mythic raid, someone that's newer to the game is kind of just like dead weight.
You need a degree to like
the
last mythic boss.
No, it's true.
I mean, that came up in the Ian interview, right? Of like the really good players find all the little combinations and their conduits and talents and things, and they're doing way more damage than someone that doesn't have that all figured out. Or like that rogue that had no conduits equipped, no legendary equipped. Like that guy can never make it, but in Classic, it's like dungeon blues are fine if you want to go into molten core.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, at the same time, we're talking about a dungeon that was balanced for a 40-person raid where 20 people were AFK, really.
Right. That's true. I remember my hunters just AFKing, auto-shotting, like eating dinner. Auto-following and auto-shotting.
Now you have to have a Raider IO score and AOTC cutting edge achievements, and anyway.
I hate Raider IO so much, actually.
But they're baking it into the system.
Yeah.
No, I didn't even know that. That's sad. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Because when I come back, like, I won't have played as much as some people, but like, even if I have done like, on half the dungeons, I've done like a top level mythic plus, like whatever is near the highest at the time, and I'll have like high parses and stuff. You still won't get invited because your IO isn't high enough unless you've done it for like every single dungeon. I just think it's such a pain in the ass.
I don't disagree. It actually disincentivizes me for trying hard, is because I just see that as a huge obstacle and I just don't want to bother. So I'll just like do casual stuff instead. So, speaking of casual stuff, why don't we roll into the need, greed, and pass segment, and we'll pick your guys' brain on what you think of today's scenario.
Critical segue.
The critical role. So this segment, I'm going to pose a scenario with 3 options related to WoW, and yourselves as participants are going to have to decide on which one you will need, which one you'll greed, and which one you'll pass individually. So let's the hilarity commence, as we will decide on what we will need, greed, and pass. And just a reminder, folks watching live right now, you can play along in chat, and people at home on your drive, feel free to respond via email, technicallypvp@gmail.com, or on Twitter @technically_pvp. All right, so today, I mean, obviously, the title says it all. We're here, we're talking about Burning Crusade, and this is in in thoughts that the Burning Crusade is in beta right now, and we're seeing it going to come out soon TM. So we saw this with Classic, where Classic wasn't really vanilla. There's a couple changes that they made, right? So Burning Crusade Classic and Arenas, what could they possibly change to maybe make it that little bit different or that little bit better than what it was originally, right? So the 3 options is 1, bring in dampening. Now, normally this was not used until Mist of Pandaria, but bring it in earlier so you don't have, 30-minute long arena match of 1v1 while everybody, while a hunter kites you around an arena. Option number 2, diminishing returns. Yes, that should be something from Wrath of the Lich King, but bring it in a little earlier so that you can't get feared repeatedly. And third, and this one I did because we're all casters. So spell haste normally would only the lowest you could get your GCD was down to 1 second. I say so. The third option is remove that so you can maximize spell haste and drop GCD below a second. All right. So the 3 options is bring in dampening on Burning Crusade, bring in diminishing returns, and allow spell haste to go below 1 second GCD.
Well, there is just to be fair, there is actually diminishing returns in the Burning Crusade.
Ah, son of a!
That's what I thought. I'm like, I was like, is everything I'm remembering a lie?
I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
There's still some things that were weird. I think like Entangling Roots and Frost Nova didn't DR potentially.
Oh,
I remember playing a Gnome Warrior because I could DR it with Escape Artist though, because people had like the Grasping Roots or whatever, the buff. Remember?
Yeah.
You like intentionally proc that and then.
Okay.
And then DR.
So there was definitely some like really nice DR, like especially for Druid. I think Cyclone just had its own category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like Storm Herald Stun also didn't DR with like Mace Stun and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think Rogue Mace Stun didn't DR with Kidney Shot. So there's like some weird stuff.
Yeah.
But
all right.
Most
shot,
all right. Scratch diminishing returns, throw in dual spec. There you go.
There you go.
Oh, that.
I mean, for me, I would say get dampening in there. I mean, you said 30-minute games. That's a quickie. And when you're talking about like Druid Warlock mirrors and stuff, I literally remember playing a Druid Rogue mirror that was 3 hours, and like there was games like that is just like while it's kind of funny story, it was horrible to play. And like people doing stuff like that, or like playing against like people wearing Shadow Resist, where you just can't do any damage to them.
Yeah,
that was horrible. So I would say dampening. The GCD thing, honestly, I don't really care about. So like that's a pass for me. And probably I guess I agreed on maybe what was the other one?
Dual spec.
That's just handy to have, right? I know in Classic like respec costs are like really high for people, so I'm not sure how much of an issue that is in TBC. I honestly can't really remember. But definitely as a Warlock, I at least liked playing Demo and Affliction, so it'd be nice to have.
All right. Right on top of there. Thanks. Then.
I would need dual spec. I think it's just a nice convenience, to be honest with you. Dampening, I'd greed that one. Not sure. Like I think it's like on the one hand, it is really, really nice when you have like these games that can go on forever. On the other hand, like I don't. It's not my favorite when matches come down to dampening. Like I wish there was a different way to do it, but I definitely understand the concern of like these long games, because for me, even on the beta, you find yourself in a situation where like, oh great, I'm 1v1ing a priest, and if both of us, like if either of us don't want to lose, it's impossible to lose. Like you just run around the pillar. As a mage, you can just infinitely Nova, improve counterspell sheep, cross the map. The priest can just run around the pillar dispelling himself. You literally can't end the game. So something, I guess dampening would work there, so I'd greed that one, and then I'd pass on
they need more tornadoes. That's what they need.
Tornadoes?
Add tornadoes to all arenas.
Those lasted so like short. It was only like
more.
a month and then they got deleted.
They just get bigger and bigger the longer the game goes. Forget dampening until it's just like a hurricane.
They could just go around the pillars, like don't let you pillar anymore.
Monsoon.
Yeah. Spikes start shooting out of the pillar.
Yeah, all the pillars just go down. You just can't.
Ring of Valor style. The pillars just get lifted off the ground or get crushed.
Sorry. Yeah, go.
Yeah, for me, I'm on the same page as Azael for the most part. Dampening, we need some solution to end games, I think. Yeah, definitely had multiple hour-long matches back then. I mean, crowd shows use another option. Like that was I think it was like a damage buff or damage taken debuff went on someone based on like who did the most damage during the game. But yeah, something to end the game we need, I think. Yeah, dual spec is greed. Like, I don't think it's a big deal to add a little bit of convenience here, even though we were just talking about earlier the convenience causing problems. But yeah, if I had to pick something to greed, it would be dual spec. And then spell haste, yeah, I think I don't really remember that being like something I was bothered by. I think I stacked like mana regen and it just like I didn't stack haste, so it didn't really come up for me. And I think it's there just to limit like people really stacking one stat too hard. So probably pass on that.
Okay, fair. I mean, personally, I like the idea of having no GCD, so being able to spell haste all the way up and have like a half-second GCD and just maximize Shadow Bolt, and just watch something.
Out of curiosity, did you enjoy Battle for Azeroth, the final season?
Yeah. I actually did, because I thought it was fun. I thought that as much as it was painful in some ways as well, and just the random damage, dying to something you're not doing was weird. Because just abilities popping off or whatever. But some of the haste there, like casting off Chaos Bolts with like supreme speed, was kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie.
The true chaotic neutral alignment over here.
And so that was gonna be my need. I was going to greed on dampening, because yes, having an end state to a game and not playing for 30 plus minutes, and I was going to pass on dual spec because if I play Burning Crusade Classic, I probably will be Affliction Lock and never stop. So. Andallyn, nice. What are yours?
I'm aligning with you guys too. I would need on the dampening. Although I do think Venruki has a cool point. I think there is a certain amount of there isn't a tangible amount of good for a game to be able to go on long if both teams are going to refuse to lose. And there's value in that. But I think given the choice, I'm going to greed on the spell haste, and I'm gonna pass on the dual spec because I like the identity. You're kind of locked in, so that's kind of good. That's what I'm gonna go with.
All right. So, sounds good.
I'm probably the worst person to be doing this, but I'm also so intrigued to be here too because I actually didn't get the chance to play TBC, which was unfortunate for me. But that's why I'm kind of excited for the chance to be able to play it here pretty soon. So,
yeah, that's kind of cool that you get to re-experience it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I ended up playing Classic, and this is like the worst series of events. But I ended up kind of quitting Classic before TBC, a midway before TBC came out. But I didn't actually end up coming back to WoW until 90 days in Wrath of the Lich King before Cataclysm launched. So I kind of missed all of TBC and Wrath of the Lich King, so I guess I missed the glory days.
You have some good content ahead of you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm excited. Very excited. So.
All right. Well, since you're so excited, let's actually talk about Burning Crusade then, and see what it was like and what we can expect now that it's coming back. So, it's been, wow, what's it been? It's been 14 years now since Burning Crusade.
Jeez.
Yeah, you guys, and I remember you guys being up on stage. I remember watching you guys just doing amazing things I would never have ever thought about doing. So I guess first and foremost, back then, I guess if you will, how much effort would you say you put into becoming professional players in World of Warcraft? Soda, how about you first, actually?
I honestly didn't intend to become a pro player. I just played so much because I love the game that much. And I was kind of on a backwater battle group a little bit, so I was able to band together a group that just did so well that we reached like rank 1 in every bracket just because we played so much and because we love the game so much. And then from there it turned into kind of like a pro thing. But yeah, like it really wasn't my intent, honestly.
Just kind of happened.
Yeah. I mean, how many pro players really were there at that point in time? Because I mean, was that something that you would really put in your mind as like something that you would strive for to attain?
No, it was a new scene. It was a brand new esport. Just it had just been born. Arenas was actually super interesting at the time because in Classic there was nothing like it. There was just Stranglethorn Arena where sometimes people would like arrange 2v2s or 3v3s, and it was really interesting in Classic, so it was super exciting. And I think that's why an esports scene got born, because there was so much excitement around on the format. Yeah, it's I think most people were probably like me, where they like they didn't have anyone to look up to and be like, I want to be like that, I want to be pro. They just kind of were the people that were doing really well, and they just kind of got adopted into the scene.
Yeah. It's very organic.
I would say the only like really early team like before kind of us was because it was invite only tournaments. I don't know if you remember like Pandemic and stuff, right? When there was like WSVG and whatnot, because that I think we all started with like the first MLG, right?
Yeah, I was
like,
2008.
Yeah, like I remember qualifying for like BlizzCon when it was like 2v2, and then qualifying for BlizzCon when it was 5v5 and all that stuff. But Canadians weren't allowed to go, so both times I qualified, there was like no tournament that I could go to or anything. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Canadians weren't allowed to go, and then I think the first year that I was allowed to go, you had to like write an essay or something to qualify. It was something weird. I don't know if you remember that, Ben, but yeah, like
no way.
Yeah, seriously, you had to write some.
It had something to do with gambling laws, and there had to be a way to enter the competition for free without paying money, so Canadians could write an essay as their entry instead of paying money.
Yeah,
I see.
What would you say? Like,
it was like why you like Arena or something.
I think it was irrelevant, to be honest with you. I think it was a loophole.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are like what Alex was saying. I mean, I definitely didn't set out to be a pro. I think most pros don't set out to be a pro. Because it's like a pretty unattainable goal for most people. It kind of just happens because you love the game and you happen to be good at it and you play it a lot, right? Like, like I lived on WoW, so I got good at WoW, right? Like, and there's some like innate skill or whatever that I think people are born with to get at the absolute top. But I would imagine it's the same for most of us, where it was just like you happen to be really good, and then you kind of find out, hey, there's these things going on, right? Like I'd been PvPing and did it nonstop in Classic and did the kind of stuff that Alex was talking about. Like we used to arrange 2v2s and 3v3s and 1v1s in Stranglethorn Arena. I love that stuff. So I was so excited when Arena was coming out, and I dove right in. I wasn't on Bloodlust either. I didn't transfer till later. When I actually got kicked from my 5v5 team because they wanted to run the comp that Pandemic was running in 5v5. So they kicked me for a mage when we were rank 1. I was pissed. And I was like rank 1 in all 3 brackets, and I got kicked off my teams because they wanted to swap to a mage instead of having a warlock.
Oh my gosh!
Not even telling me anything. So that was like what prompted me to then go and transfer to BG9. Like I ended up on that battle group. I made a different team and took rank 1 from them, and then transferred to BG9 and beat Pandemic. And I was playing with Collective and stuff, if you guys remember him.
Yeah.
And he made a video called LOL Warlock because Pandemic was like the first time we played Pandemic. You used to be able to talk in Arena back then, right?
Yeah.
So I transferred over, and they asked me to play with them, and we played, and we got Pandemic, and they shit on us the first game, and they're all spamming LOL Warlock and just flaming us. And then we got them again the next game, and one of our players DC'd, and we 4v5 them, and then we beat them like 15 times in a row. And Collective made a PvP video, and it was literally just us beating them over and over and over and over, and that was the whole PvP video, and it was called LOL Warlock.
That's hilarious.
I love
Wow.
Collective.
Where is he now?
He was like a coder at like Amazon or something like that. Like he's I
Yeah.
don't know what he's doing exactly now. I
I
haven't
think he
talked to him
works
in a
at
long
Twitch. The
time.
last I heard,
Twitch.
he's a
Okay.
programmer for Twitch. I think,
Oh man.
allegedly.
It's really cool seeing where people have gone with their careers. Like we see them as these professionals, and then seeing where they've gone on to other things, such as like, well, I mean, Soda, you're working at Blizzard. Ven, you're a streamer and contractor for Blizzard, right? And then Azael, you're working for Riot now, which is, I think, amazing for all of you. So it's really cool how that became. Well, I'm assuming. Actually, am I wrong on that assumption that the Blizzard and the WoW esports and that became a stepping stone for you to move on to the next things that you guys have done?
Oh, for sure. I mean, my experiences with BC actually is why I'm where I'm at today, right? Like playing that game so much, falling in love with the game, wanting to get into game design as a result, wanting to work on video games. It's all because I played BC so dang much and got into the esports scene. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Oh, Ven, am I wrong on that, or would you say TBC
No, of
was
course.
a stepping stone for you?
Well, I mean, people sometimes ask me like, oh, what do I do if I want to, start streaming? Like, what did you do? And I say I didn't do anything. I literally just turned on my stream, and people wanted to watch because they saw me in tournaments. So my whole streaming career is based off of me being good at WoW and being able to compete in WoW and playing dual tournaments and threes tournaments and stuff like that. So for me, it was pretty much everything to get where I'm at right now.
Awesome. So, see, Andallyn, we just have to win a tournament, and then we'll become rank 1 streamers.
Yeah, I'll see if I can buy one in trade chat.
All right.
They sell everything there now, so.
Yeah, apparently. Just looking at LFG. Azael, yourself?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same for me, obviously. I mean, TBC was our start point, right? I would say for probably all of us. I think especially the people who got in the pro scene early became like, the pro scene was really like booming at the time, and I think it was a pretty good jumping off point for a lot of us, right? There was live tournaments all the time, like we were going like every month, so you became pretty well known, and all three of us had a lot of success in the tournaments and stuff. So for sure, I mean, for me that led me into casting WoW, after playing WoW and then casting Hearthstone and StarCraft and now League, right? It was all because I had a pro gaming background. Like I don't have any university degree. I don't have any broadcast experience prior to casting. I only got into casting because they gave me the benefit of the doubt, knowing that I knew the game well because I was a pro, right? So for sure, I mean, I think TBC was the starting point for that, but wasn't the end all be all by any means. It's that all of us spent a huge amount of time as pro gamers and doing WoW esports, right? And there's value in the experience that we have, because I think to get to the top of a game and maintain a level at or near the top of a game for a long time, like people know that requires a certain set of skills that are valuable, I think, in a lot of things, whether it's as a streamer for Elliot, whether it's working at Blizzard for Alex, because obviously you know things and can see things in a different way than other people, and kind of be able to come at it from a different angle. And I think it's the same for casting too.
Makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate your guys' openness about that, because I see it often on Twitch chat and YouTube chat and all the other social, like Reddit and all that. People, how do I get into esports? How do I get into casting and all that stuff? And really, a lot of people just say it's use your passion and just go into it, right? And that's in a way like it's show yourself worthy enough in a way through everything else you're doing.
Yeah. So I kind of have a question that kind of stems into this same kind of discussion about being genuinely loving the game, and it just being where you spend your life in, right? Azael, you mentioned you spent so much time in WoW, you just got good at the game. So my question for each of you is, I'm kind of curious, what in TBC, or maybe it was back in Classic, what about the game was that hook that, like, you were done? You weren't gonna go work at Walmart. You weren't gonna go do your homework. Like, you were playing WoW. Like, what was that hook? Was it a dungeon that you did? Was it somebody that you played with, or an experience that you had playing with somebody? Was it a friend? Well, like, if you can recall, maybe it's hard to kind of identify or just place it exactly, but if you know, what was that hook that kind of said, "Yeah, man, this is what I want to do"?
For me, it's honestly pretty easy. It was a social element, and I don't think anything else comes close to that. You know, like I can speak for myself. Like, where, you know, high school, I wasn't like happy. You know, I didn't feel like I related to people sometimes. You know, like I had a lot of friends, but then I didn't feel like I could kind of like share my interests with a lot of them, right? Because like I played a lot of sports in high school, and I had all my friends were just people who played sports. Like, no one gamed. And that was something I always really loved doing, and I didn't really have any friends I felt like I shared that with. And when I played WoW, it was just like, I don't know, it's the ability to find friends through this common interest, and it felt like you were becoming friends with people purely for personality, not like through, like, you know, looks or social status or like anything else, you know. And for me, that was what like hooked me to the game completely, is that like I made these friends, and it just felt like it was like a genuine friendship or relationship that was like based around a shared love for gaming and for WoW. And that's what kept me playing all the time. That's what kept me logging in every day, was, you know, I wanted to play with these people. And it was the same with PvP, right? Like, esports today, I think, especially in some of the other games, it's very different. And like, you know, when I look at League of Legends and it's like franchised and everything, you don't get to choose your teammates, right? And I wonder like how much different that would have been for me. Like, even if I had the same level of skill in League of Legends that I had in WoW, like, would I have even enjoyed being a pro? Like, would I have succeeded if I had to play with people that I don't even like? You know, like, because for me, so much of it was the love of the social element. You know, playing with people that I got to choose as my teammates and that I loved playing with all the time was what made me get good, because I just always wanted to play. You know, and I think that for me, that was absolutely it.
That's powerful. I like that. I love that.
That was a really good description, Azael.
Wow.
Thanks.
So good with words. Yeah,
It really is about those social connections. I mean, like you guys. I feel like I have a lifelong connection with both of you, just from playing with you in WoW, and that's like super powerful.
Yeah.
Like, what other game can do that, you know?
Yeah. I still have connections on Facebook and in various Discords with people that I was playing with back in Wrath and Burning Crusade and that. So I feel you. So obviously the social connections is what you say is the good. What about the bad and the ugly about Burning Crusade? What would you say is the things that the traps that people have forgotten about? Let's take the rose-colored glasses off and talk about the stuff that people maybe don't remember so well. So what's something in Burning Crusade that you would say was less than ideal?
Maybe how grindy, like, getting gear was. Like, it was really important, especially in arena, that you had really good PvE gear. My team had a huge advantage because I raided a lot. I had like full shadow resist gear. I had like all the mana regen gear, and you could swap around gear mid arena even during like the middle of the expansion. And that was honestly kind of unfair, cheesy. You could just completely dominate your enemy just because you happen to have this piece of gear. And it was hard to get. Like, you had to have a pretty good guild to clear that content and get the good pieces of gear. And it was a big deal. Like, that was really important.
It's incredibly important. Like, The thing is, it's just like in Classic though. Like it ends up becoming kind of like a part-time job, or a full-time job where the gear. Like it's kind of like a meta shift in Classic where basically everyone knows what the best gear is, so they all raid to get it. Because if you don't have it, then you're at a huge disadvantage. And I think the amount of people we see with like a Storm Herald, for example, on Warriors it's gonna be completely different than what we saw before. Like the amount of rogues that are setting up raids already so they can be the ones that get the Warglaves of Azaroth because it's just disgustingly overpowered. Like everyone's gonna want to get, the Void Star talisman on their Warlock, whereas when we played, it was only a select few that actually had that. And I think it ends up being this thing where if you want to play on like kind of a fair level, you are going to have to do these things. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, 100% the PvE gear is pretty insane. Like I had Void Star talisman, and it was like mages just couldn't kill your pet, right? Like it was basically just not an option whatsoever. So it completely changed the strategies that people had to play. And it's the same thing with Warglaves. Like Warglaves were by far the most broken thing in the game. Like if you played against Warglaves rogues in the early seasons, and I think it's going to be like somewhat delayed, right? It's somewhat gated when you can actually do BT versus what season it is. But I remember like some super lucky people in PvE guilds had Warglaves like the full set in like season 1, season 2. And people that had that at that point, it was like you just got a guaranteed rank 1 in 2v2. Like you actually couldn't compete with season 1 weapons or season 2 weapons against anyone who was even like a tiny bit competent with Warglaves. They're so much better. Like they're even way better than the season 4 weapons, and people had them in season 1, season 2. So I mean that's a big deal. I would also just say, I mean, I think there's like a huge amount of RNG, a huge amount of imbalance. Like I love TBC. I loved my time playing it. But, like there was absolutely tournament games that were decided. I don't know if you guys remember $10,000 Mace Stun. Do you guys remember that meme? Like,
no.
Yeah.
No, I don't, but I believe it.
So it was like Reagan. Do you remember Reagan? Half Moon, Glix, and
Yes.
Reagan?
Yep.
So Reagan was a warrior, and they were one of the best teams at the time. They won MLG and so on and so forth. And I remember them in I can't remember. I want to say it was like MLG finals or something like that, right? For 10 grand or whatever it was. And the Druid he's playing against, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Sodah. It might have been like Green Ranger. I have no idea.
Yeah.
So he's playing against a Druid, and the Druid fakes his pummel and then fakes his spell reflect, and then he's really low and he's gonna live 100% because he has a clone and there's no more intercepts on cooldown, etc. And he casts clone, gets mace stunned on it, gets out of mace stun, starts casting clone, gets mace stunned again, dies, and they lose the finals off of this, right? And everyone,
I remember that.
Had this meme of like everyone started calling it the $10,000 mace stun.
Yeah.
And it was like this was a strategy. Like I multi-classed, and that's how we won MLGs and stuff. I played Rogue, Warrior, and Warlock, and we just counter comp based on whatever we were playing. And like you would literally play improved hamstring for like the reduced rage cost on hamstring, and actually a lot of times it was better to not use any abilities besides hamstring because your mace stun could proc off hamstring.
Yep.
So you could literally just spam hamstring because it only cost like 7 rage or whatever it was. And
it was super
just proc
cheap.
mace stuns. And so it was like there's really stupid strategies like that. I played Rogue. I mean, at one point, Alex and I played twos together, and you could have 4 people on Charter, and it was just him on his Druid and then my 3 classes.
Yep.
And we just counter whoever was queuing up with whatever was best. But like, there was really cheesy strategies with where you're playing around mace stuns. Like you would just pool energy, get slice and dice up, get exposed armor, and then you'd literally just sit on full energy and full combo points, wait for a mace stun, and then it didn't DR with kidney. So you do a mace stun into a full kidney, and like you could play around this like really stupid RNG. For Warlocks, I used to like go insane. When I would lose a game based off of like Devour Magic, your Fell Hunter could dispel you, right? And so I'd play against Venruki here, and he'd like rank 1 Frostbolt me, and then like Kona Cold me, and then Nova me or whatever, and it was just pure RNG if I could dispel the sheep or not, right? And you would 100% just win or lose a game based off of the RNG. And sometimes the dispel, there was even a built-in chance where it could just fail. It's like, I don't know what it was, a couple percent, where even if it was the only sheep, the dispel would just fail. And you would literally lose tournaments where you've been practicing for months and thousands of dollars online off of this. So it's like, there is a huge amount of bullshit RNG in PvC, like poison dispel failing on rogues poisons. I'm sure you lost lots of games off that, Alex. Like, there's a lot of stuff like that that's pretty
It's
bullshit.
it's all over. There's like a spell reflect meta gem. There's blackout stun. The whole game is like designed around RNG.
Cloak of
It's
Shadows, you can
it's
die.
pretty
10%
wild.
chance to die through Cloak of Shadows.
Yeah, you can die through cloak. Yep.
The half cast meta gem. I don't know if you guys remember that, but like the
Yeah.
meta in 5v5 used to be playing around that for like as demo locks. I would play that, and we would just wait for a proc, and then we would use all our cooldowns with a half cast Soulfire and like all the Ellie Shaman burst, and you would literally just play around the RNG. And as like I think it was either you or Elliot or Alex, one of you guys said how like everyone's gonna have Storm Herald, right? Like everyone is gonna know this shit now, right?
Yeah.
There was all kinds of people running around with like the Lionheart sword or whatever it was called instead, just because people just like, swords are cool. They didn't really think about it. And like most people weren't using, the really OP meta gems and things like that. But like everyone is going to know this. Everyone is going to abuse it. Like even way past TBC, there wasn't like live updating armories and stuff. So people couldn't even see what specs were and what gear was. So if you had it figured out, you had a huge advantage.
So how would you go through and have these things figured out? Just out of curiosity. Like, was it testing? Did you just kind of have like a network of people that
I would test everything with my team. I would sit there and I'd like, especially once Tournament Realm was out, we would like try like every gem setup and see how how much damage we did versus other things, mixing in PV gear. Like I mean, literally played probably like 50,000 arenas, like over my like PvP career or whatever. Like you play such an absurd amount. If you're like actively trying to improve and think about things, I mean, it's the same thing with these guys, right? Like I remember, you guys coming to tournaments and like doing like full resil stacking in every socket when people were still doing like int and stuff, and you guys just like figured out resilience was super OP, and there's different strategies that people would come up with that worked really really well, even if it was only in a niche situation.
Yeah, there's cool talents experimentation you can do in BC too. Move this point here, move this point over here, which I really loved about BC. A lot more talent experimentation. I remember coming up with like this balanced druid / resto druid hybrid build, and we used it to beat like warrior lock druid for a while,
which is considered like an impossible matchup. That we figured out like this strategy where it was and I think that's one of the things is I really feel like in the Burning Crusade, knowledge is king. Like mechanically, the game is way easier than Shadowlands in my opinion. Like people that say like the high rated Shadowlands players can't compete in TBC. Well, maybe not at the start, but once they figure it out, there's no doubt they're going to be able to compete in it, in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of it is strategy. And back then, there was no streaming. People aren't making YouTube videos and guides and stuff like that. Is when you figured out something, that's what could get you rank 1, or that's what was going to get you Gladiator, or that was going to win you a tournament if you figured out like a really interesting strategy. So, I mean, I think those things are they're really, really important. And it's one of those things that's going to kind of go away in like this new version of the game. Like I said, knowledge is king. Everyone's going to know all the strategies, and it makes the imbalances a little bit more. But yeah, I was going to going back to Alex's story. There was like this matchup that was basically impossible for Rogue Mage Druid. It was WLD. Like no one expected us to win, and he came up with this strategy where he was basically going to be the primary damage dealer over me. And my job was basically just snare the warrior all game while our rogue used double wound poison. So he didn't have to use crippling, just keep up wound on him. And we ended up beating them 2 series in a row, which was like completely unheard of. Yeah.
Wow. So they figured it out.
Yeah, they got a third chance and beat us, but...
So that's... Thinking about the information exchange there, like you're saying, nowadays we have all these forum groups. I mean, we have Wowhead. Before we had, I think, Thoughtbot at best to like search out stuff. Did you guys, outside of your specific team, was there any communication you guys had with other players to Theorycraft, or was it very close hold? Like, did you guys keep all your cards close hold and not share that information?
Kind of different. Like I feel like back then, at least for me, like now in Shadowlands, like everyone's my friend. Like, oh, this guy's my friend. I like this mage. Like he's cool, and let's talk about strats. But back then, it wasn't like that for me. It was, I want to be the best. I don't care if this guy's good. He's not my friend. That's my competition. I want to be better than him, and that's really how I was. I was hyper competitive. I didn't want to give people my strategies. If I figured something out, that was mine, and I was going to use it to win. Like it was just a totally different mindset.
I bet you would feel more similar to that though if you were still competing in tournaments. I think that's a big mindset shift too, right? Yeah. Is that it's like you don't live or die based on the result of you winning or losing an arena anymore, right? Like you're more of an entertainer. Obviously, you still want to get high ranked, and you do, but like it's not the same live or die like on ladder as it is, I think, if you were at BlizzCon.
Well, I think the thing is that is true, but the thing is it's so different now. Like in the AWC, the millisecond the gates open, you know every single conduit, you know the Covenant, you know their gearing, you know how they gem, you know how they trinket, how they spec. Everyone can see that. You know, people have 4-player rosters. There's a 100% chance that that 4th player is refreshing that add-on and telling them, oh, this guy doesn't have a Battle Masters this game or an emblem. Go after him. Like, he's the guy you're going to go after. So the age of, like, kind of hiding information and doing secret strategies, I feel like just doesn't really exist. There's, like, almost no point of even trying to hide it.
That's kind of
sad. You figure out,
like
a bug or something.
Yeah.
I think you could still hide strategies and stuff. Maybe just not gear setups, right? Like maybe that's a little bit different, but
yeah.
I loved that stuff, man. I loved when I felt like I had an edge, based off of tournaments. I remember, like, because I spent a lot of time and figured out like what I believed at least to be the optimal gear setup and specs and stuff. When we would go to tournaments, Warlocks on the tournament realm would try to run around and follow me and inspect me and copy my gear. So on the setup days, I would do a garbage ass spec and have the wrong gear on and stuff. And I would only change it right before we're about to play. And then I'd see people wearing this terrible ass trash setup that I had been baiting with, and I'd be playing against them with a totally different setup. So like I would do stuff like that. I was all about like what Elliot's saying about like hiding information and trying to figure out the best things. I mean, I think you shared with your friends, and I think that people also sometimes would recognize or realize when you saw someone doing a strategy, right? Like you could kind of imitate it or whatever. Like you could figure things out. So there was kind of a sharing of information through playing against people, just through imitation and experimentation. But it's definitely different, especially, I mean, you talking about the add-on with the gear setup, like for years and years, past TBC even, a lot of times I would sneak in tons of PvE gear in tournaments, and I would just wear, PvP shoulders and PvP chest and things like that. So it was like all the cosmetic pieces that you could actually see look the same, because that's often how people, you guys probably remember, would tell at MLGs and BlizzCons and stuff. You would actually look at the visual, because this was pre-transmog. So if someone was wearing PvE gear, you could see that they're wearing PvE gear. And very few players actually thought past that to like hide the helmet, hide the cloak, wear all the PvE rings and do all these things so that you couldn't actually tell. Because if you went into an arena, even top teams would swap PvE gear, and I would see like PvE chest, and I'm like, all right, kill this idiot. And you'd go on that person and you'd kill them. But like there were so many series that we would win because I was doing extra damage and I'm hiding all this PvE gear with just like PvP chest, PvP shoulders, PvP gloves, the only things that you could see, and everything else was PvE. And like if anyone went on me, I would die, but like no one knew.
Wow. Ultimate baiter.
That stuff is fun, man.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So like of all these things, like did this RNG and these imbalances, was there any inherent value to this, or was it all just maybe stuff that just it was the way it was, and we can't really go back and change it, but it kind of contributed to the game? And was there any kind of value from that? Like
I have like very mixed emotions about it, because like Isaac said, you have situations with the $10,000 mace stun where it's like, then on all accounts you should live, but they got really lucky. But on the other side of things, I feel like when you have no RNG at all, it changes like the amount of variance in the game, and also limits the like adaptability of a player, because sometimes frostbite proccing or an imp hamstring happening, like it completely changes the dynamic of certain matchups, and it allows certain players to like outshine others where they're put in like this disadvantaged position because of RNG. And so I think it makes the game interesting, but for like the ultimate competitiveness, like if you're ultimate competitive, you don't want the game to be coming down to just random stuff. I mean, one of the things that I have done on the Burning Crusade beta is there's a talent that mages have called Arctic Winds, and I always put 5 points in it, and it reduces melee's chance to hit you by 5%. And I didn't used to always play that talent, but now it's like I realize if the kidney misses, I win the game. You know what I mean? Like you have a 2% chance to just not die when you would have. So cool. So I take full advantage of all that RNG. But it can definitely be incredibly frustrating. But at the same time, I feel like it also adds like It's a little interesting, kind of.
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
Yeah,
the
that
exciting moments.
variance is good.
Okay. So now, when all this, we're all going to be playing this, and we're going to be coming at this game with all this knowledge. So what gives? Who's going to be the best player in the arena now that all this knowledge is so exploited, and it's run up to where, as like the standard player, I'm going to run it. I'm going to find what the best rogue loadout is, and I'm going to run that to the max. And so is every other rogue. Like, with all this
Execution,
RNG,
right?
Okay, so execution.
Like, when I think about like druids were so broken in TBC, right? But like I was always jealous of people getting to play with like people like Alex, because like there's a difference between like the absolute like world's best druids and the like really 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 good ones. And just in that, like, he could just do so much more, because like players like Alex, and there was maybe only a couple of them at most. It was like they weren't just healing their team, right? Like, he was able to do that while playing offensive and things like that. Like, it's like the added bonus of players who can kind of like do it all, and be able to fake enough interrupts and still keep themselves alive while going in and looking for clones and looking for bear charges to interrupt casts and bashes. And it's like, it's execution based, right? Everyone's going to have the same gear setup and the same general knowledge, and it's just who's going to utilize their things better, who's going to coordinate better, who's going to, like Fen said, play off of RNG more intelligently, right? Like, recognize, that you can change your strategy based on the fact that you just got this mace done, or based on the fact that something happened. There's still obviously a tremendous amount of skill in the game, and I think that it'll be interesting to see if, like, with so many years of experience, like 14 extra years of experience, there's more people who can play like at a level like what Alex did. Because even among the pros, I literally think there was like maybe 2 or 3 druids who like went to tournaments who could like play really offensively like he could. And that was just like such an advantage, especially for, you're describing like the way that you guys beat WLD. There's probably literally 0 other pro druids who like would have thought of that or been able to do it, right? Like, it's just those kind of things. It wasn't just that you came up with the strategy, it's that you could actually execute it.
Yeah. Druid is, in particular, one of the most interesting classes during Burning Crusade. There's so much depth to the class, so the execution there, the skill ceiling is extremely high for Druid in particular. Probably Warlock and Mage too, but Druid is just so flexible. You have these tools, like you have Feral Charge, which adds this whole dimension of gameplay, because you can interrupt people from far away, and like, it requires that you shapeshift to do it, but it adds so much depth. There's like a bunch of stuff they had like that. You had Demoralizing Roar. You'd constantly be utilizing your shapeshift forms, so I'm excited to see like what kind of hero druids come out of Burning Crusade now that it's being relived. We're gonna see some awesome plays, I think.
Well, I want to point that something that was brought up in Twitch chat actually is really interesting. Well, 2 points actually. One, Burning Crusade was around 14 years ago, but there's also been 14 years of private servers where people have been even honing it further than what it was when everybody moved on to Wrath of the Lich King. And also, really good point is the 5v5 meta is going to be really interesting, since it hasn't existed for, well, over 10, almost 10 years, right? So that's about 5 years since they got rid of that. But yeah, sorry, it was around 10 years ago. But that's going to be interesting as well, I think. What do you guys think? Do you think the 5v5 meta is going to be is going to have a glorious return, or is it going to be just a meme thing and everybody's going to gravitate back to 2s and 3s?
I mean, I loved 5s. Like, I'm going to be honest, like in TBC, in Wrath of the Lich King, in Cataclysm, and in MoP, I loved playing 5s. Like, it was up there. And some seasons I actually preferred 5s to 3s for myself. I loved playing, 5 versus 5. It gave opportunities for different strategies, allowed me to play with different people, different comp options, and I think that it will be a lot more popular than people expect, because, like you mentioned, on some of the private servers, I don't think it does exist, and people do kind of think it's like a meme, and they got rid of it. But I personally, I loved it. Like, I really, really loved it.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys remember, but like the first 2 seasons or something, for a while, people looked at 5v5 as like 5v5 was the real bracket, right?
Yeah.
Like 2v2 and 3v3 was the baby brackets, right? And it's like 2v2 was the easiest, and as you added more players, it was more complex. So people looked at 5v5 really as being king, and that's what people really flexed on and cared about was their 5v5 ranking. And I mean, I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, it was also, I mean, again, kind of going back to the social aspect, because for me, that's like where a lot of my love for WoW was. It was like I was friends with Alex and Elliot, but we weren't on the same team, right? Like, so we didn't play. I mean, we played at times over the years, threes, and stuff, but like, especially because people wanted to stay on their locked roster. Like, if you left, you were giving up your title, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I ended up doing that a lot. And there's like a lot of seasons where my team was rank 1, but I got no title because I didn't have the games played from leaving the rosters and rejoining. But like a lot of times you couldn't play together. But 5v5 was where we could, right? So it would be like, like my team and your guys' team, and we'd have other teams in there too and stuff. And some of my best memories were of those 5v5 teams because it was like our ability to actually have a squad and all play together as a group. In a way that you just like could in 3v3 because we had to play with our squad and practice for tournaments.
Yeah, one of the coolest things about 5v5 was being able to play with another healer for me, because I never got to play with people like Collective, right? And have them like dispelling me instantly and me dispelling them instantly. And that was such a cool experience. And I think bringing in other social groups into your arena circle was a really cool side effect of 5v5. So I hope it's popular. I hope that people care about it. I'm sure they will because it gives titles. So I'm kind of excited to see people come back to it.
I think, and somebody pointed out, Fives gave the most points as well, right? So.
Oh, did it? I forgot about that.
Which makes sense. I mean.
Yeah, those.
So what more about arenas do you think we should help people be aware of? What should they look for? What about the pitfalls? I mean, we're also looking at the fact that these are some of the original maps for the arenas that people are going to be playing on. So things like Blade's Edge with the 2 little pillars to the side, not the ramps. Oh, there was a chuckle. Yeah. So I mean, what is there something about the maps and these original maps we should be talking about as well?
I mean, Blade's Edge was definitely funny. I mean, that was the one that, like, the other ones are pretty much the same, right? There's really not that much of a difference. I think Blade's Edge, the fact that you actually had to, like, jump to the pillars was such a big deal, and there was, like, some really funny things you could do around that. Like,
yep.
I remember with Amplify Curse, you could do Amplify Curse of Exhaustion as someone jumped, and they would fall. So I would often save that on Blade's Edge. So, like, I would hop over there, and then I wouldn't coax them so that they would try. And then as they jumped, I'd Amplify Curse of Exhaustion them in the air, and they'd like slow down and just fall. And you can do that to people with like Cone of Cold and stuff too, right? Like there are some really funny things that you could do and screw people over. So I think that's pretty funny. I mean, there's one thing I really hope that they will remove that was kind of funny about the maps was the wall jumping. I don't know if you guys really remember that, but like people used to do stuff where they literally just wall jump outside of the arena, and then the arena just wouldn't end because there's no time limit. And like things like that, I really hope get removed. Because if you learned it, it was like really easy to do, and people would like a rogue would, you'd kill a mage and it'd be rogue mage, and then the rogue would just vanish and just wall jump out of the arena and go AFK, and you just like had to leave the game unless you wanted to wait for hours for like a GM to respond to a ticket and like kick this person offline.
I think because it's on a different client than the original TBC, that stuff doesn't exist. Like I don't think wall jumping exists at all. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't think that actually happened.
It kind of does. But,
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it will in arena though. It's like only certain areas that you can jump. I used to
find out. I'm gonna have to watch some old videos and figure it out.
I mean, that'd be great to test on beta, honestly, because it'd be good to add an out of bounds thing. I think that's a good change that they could make. Like we were talking about earlier, like add dampening, add out of bounds too.
Yeah.
That would be a good one. If only I'd known, I would have put that in the list. I'm still beating myself up for the diminishing returns faux pas.
I mean, you weren't wrong. There was some weird DRs in BC,
Oh yeah, there
right?
was. Yeah.
I mean, it's partly why druids were so good, because Cyclone, I could just do it on anyone I want. I don't mess up my Warlock Sphere DR if I do that.
Yeah.
You get yelled at in Shadowlands. You get yelled at if you use Cyclone.
Yeah, stop cycloning. Just heal me.
Well,
That's why I don't play Resto Druid anymore.
yeah.
And the
have, like-
Surges and the one shots.
I have a really funny memory just recently, actually, a recent memory of playing with Volts. He plays like Arcane Mage a lot. He's kind of known for that. And my druid friend Nogard. And Nogard would keep going in, and druids got like a new utility in Shadowlands where they could basically disorienting roar with their Guardian affinity.
Yeah.
And you can like disorienting roar and then cyclone. But disorienting roar puts polymorph on diminishing return. So our druid would go in and try to get CC, and just over the course of the game, like 20 times, Volts would just be, yeah, can you stop doing that? Like I'm trying to follow this guy. Like you're putting it on DR, you know. And so like him trying to go get CC is really frustrating the other person on my team. And yeah, I guess that doesn't happen as much in TBC.
It's funny you say that, because I was talking to Hydra a couple episodes ago, and he was saying how he's getting yelled at for doing mind control.
Oh yeah.
Oh, because
So-
they're warping everywhere the whole
The
goddamn
warping
Oh,
bug.
no.
Yeah.
That shit is
I-
so annoying.
I've heard tales that could exist right now in the TBC beta as well. So
Oh,
I've heard that as well.
yeah.
It's all sales indeed. Ugh.
You know, one thing about TBC that I actually like though, that's kind of gone, is a lot of positional requirement. I always thought that was kind of cool. Like,
How so?
I guess mostly rogue, but like, you know, being able to like spin and like avoid their giving them your back, so they couldn't backstab. Rogues have to like sinister strike for no damage with daggers and stuff. I love that. And gouge, being able to keep your back to them so they couldn't gouge you. Some of that stuff I always thought was like really cool, and I always really enjoyed play around that. And that kind of created for some interesting situations. Like I remember playing twos with you when I was playing Mutilate, when no one really played Mutilate, and we would do things where he would like literally root the person and like set it up for me so I could actually get behind them and get my full combo off, and like he would bash so I wouldn't have to use combo points on a kidney, and like, you know, there were some cool things that you could do. Like it felt really good when you were kind of successful with it. So, you know, definitely kind of an interesting thing that's like not really
Yeah.
there anymore in normal WoW.
I mean, even beyond the like facing thing, just mobility is so insane in the modern game that like even if you get caught out of position, I'll just teleport across the map. It's no big deal. Back then, if you were caught out of position, it's like you were really stuck there. Like rogues, I think they only had one charge of Shadow Step, right? And it was like a longer cooldown. So you had to be really careful with your positioning. If you pushed in, it was a big deal. So yeah, that gameplay is super interesting to see coming back in BC. I don't know if you've seen that on beta, Ven. If you've seen it played out like that.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's my favorite thing about the Burning Crusade, and Wrath of the Lich King. But I feel like the thing that's so cool about the game to me is that class design is so different. Every single class, like you take the difference between like a druid and a priest, for an example. Like priest has magic dispel, so already like your teammate gets polymorphed. Oh well, guess what? You're just gonna dispel it, but you don't have hex dispel. So if you get curse of tongue, or you don't have curse dispel, so if you get curse of tongues, you know, that's something you have to deal with. Or if you get a crippling poison on you or wounds stacking up on you, that's a different problem than a druid has, who's just going to put abolish poison on themselves. So then priest also has limited mobility. Druid has a ton of mobility. So I think that's one of the reasons why you didn't see people multi-class nearly as much, is because all the different classes have unique strengths and also really unique weaknesses. So as a top tier player or someone who plays your class for a long time, you really learn to kind of adapt to those different situations. Like immediately on the Burning Crusade beta, there's such a huge difference between like a rogue who's experienced and not. Like I've been playing a lot of druid, and I was actually kind of nerding out with Alex about it. I was like, man, this class is crazy. Like no wonder you liked it so much. But
Oh yeah.
there's like certain utility you have with like Fairy Fire. So like Fairy Fire is one of the most insane abilities I've ever seen. Like playing
Like a
druid,
minute, right?
40 seconds. So for 40 seconds, the rogue can't do anything. He basically, his class gets deleted. It doesn't really get deleted, but he can't re-stealth and he can't vanish. And that's like your utility to get out of roots. And
I mean, what are
actually have
Shadowlands
mobility.
rogues going to do? That's the whole game. Just trying to re-stealth. They just sit there for
Yeah,
a
I
minute.
know.
Rip your
But it's-
rogue legendary, yeah.
But it's like, so basically, as a good rogue, if he messes up his opener, well, guess what? Fairy Fire's on you. And if you mess up your Cloak of Shadows, well, guess what? Fairy Fire's on you. And you'll notice situations where like a rogue will open on me, and he'll Cloak of Shadows in the opener, and I just know the game's over. So it's like, okay, well, he used Cloak of Shadows. Here's Fairy Fire. You can't use your 2 Vanish charges. You can't do anything. Your class is deleted, and it's just like those situations. They keep coming up. You know what I mean? Like a priest, if he gets crippled in a bad spot, you're not moving again, or like. If you're a no mage and you're way away from your healer, and he's crippled and you get feared, well, you're never getting dispelled. So enjoy that, So positioning matters a lot in the Burning Crusade, a lot more than in Shadowlands, I would say. You get punished hard.
Yeah.
In threes, I always felt like there was way more consistent pressure too. Like there was always a threat of a kill, which is one of the things that I really liked about Arena in some of the earlier expansions, was that there was like more opportunity for like off-script plays, so to speak. Where it's like because someone's out of positioning and they don't have like 6 blinks and whatever, like there's more ability to actually capitalize on it when someone would stand in a bad spot or use a cooldown, like you're saying. You see them use cloak, you just know the game's over, right? Like there's the ability to punish. I think in a way that there isn't necessarily sometimes in Shadowlands. So it's one of the things I always really liked about the game, and it did feel rewarding. Like not I mean. Some people multi-classed. I think in the early days, some people did. But it was something that I always really, really loved, was because I played the game so much. I felt like I had such a big advantage being able to play multiple classes, and counter-comping was such a big thing in the early MLG days. Because you really could just get a huge edge just by changing up your comp, right? Whereas now I feel like it's more, the comps are more bulletproof, and I think that's more because the classes are more homogenous, right? Like there's more of the same. Like when you're talking about the class uniqueness, like it can completely change like the way you could play the game and the way your opponents would have to play the game just by changing one class.
Yeah. Let me if you will, I'm gonna change gears here a little bit. I want to shift the discussion over to the talent trees and how those worked in the game. And I think coming from not having played these expansion, or this expansion specifically, tell me a little bit about how that changed, because one of my biggest pain points with Shadowlands and recently with PvP is how a lot of these classes can be very talent locked. Like, we'll talk with people routinely about every type of class, and it's like 80% of the talents are like, yeah, don't ever take anything else except this. So with the talent trees, how much flexibility did you find? And how much did that change, or did you see that you could get a lot of use out of your talent tree, or was it still pretty rigid?
I think it kind of depends. So there's something really interesting about TBC that I noticed that I actually kind of like, which is you kind of take a balanced approach when you're playing. So like when I log on and I'm just queuing up skirmishes on the beta, I have to go for like kind of a really well-rounded build, because when you zone into a game, at least in this current build, it might have been, I feel like maybe it was different before, because I think they changed it so people couldn't lock in shadow resistance gear. But in the current build, you can't see what you're playing against. And when the gates open, you don't even see them. So like every single game is like a mystery. You put on like the buffs that are most likely to happen. So like I'll start with ice armor, and then I run in, and I, after taking 20 steps, I see who my opponent is. Oh, it's a warlock. I got to run back to the pillar. I'm going to put on mage armor and kind of buff up. But there's not nearly as much kind of like min-maxing that goes on in the starter zone. Like in Shadowlands, for example, if I see a druid, I'm always switching to Kleptomania. If I'm fighting a mage, I always switch to Kleptomania. There's like a lot of like automatic choices, and you can prepare basically the best case scenario for every single one of the setups you're playing against. And in TBC, it's a little bit different. But just to kind of talk to you about like the different builds you can have, I think there's a lot. So when I started playing Druid, I made my Uncle Elliot Druid, and I've been playing a lot of beta on that one. Someone linked me like this really good Druid. Apparently, he made all these different builds. So there's like the reverse Dream State build. There's the Power Heal Resto drill that focuses more on healing. There's the Feral build. There's a Feral Mangle build. Another Feral build that focuses more on cat form. Dream State. Deep Resto with Tree of Life. Deep Resto with low range. Deep Resto with high range. So there's like 20 different builds that this guy has come up with. And I mean, I think just being able to shift, little things like, oh, if you get stunned, or if you get crit, you take less damage, or I'm going to play like a really aggressive build, so I'm going to go mental agility on my priest and be able to spam dispel a lot more. Things like that surprisingly add a lot of depth to the game.
Yeah, there were a lot of micro decisions, right? Like some mages would play impact with 1 point, some would play with 2, some with 0. Like you might have 1 point in Nature's Reach or 2, and like you'd shift points around a little bit. But it was honestly for me it was really rigid for the most part. Besides those little shifts, the real experience was like you didn't really change it around that much. I mean, there was a lot of friction to changing, so of course you didn't. But I think just the potential of being able to shift these points around and having lots of different passives to mess around with kind of made it feel like there was a lot of choice, which was cool.
Yeah. For me, like where that, like, the choice and the min-maxing really came alive was tournament play, because then of course, like, Ven saying, it's like for ladder you had to have a more general spec, right? You don't go into the gates, all right, I'm playing against RMP, I'm gonna swap to all defensive because I have to survive the opener, right? Like that's more the Shadowlands experience when I'm playing that. Like you customize every time. If you beat talents, I would change my gear to more like defensive setups if I'm playing against a burst comp, right? Like everything gets changed to customize for every game. And if you're trying to climb ladder, you just want a well-rounded thing, and maybe you would change things a little bit. Like when I was playing Warrior, we would play against like some RMPs. You didn't get rage if you're hitting into shields, so like sword spec was actually really good if you wanted to train priests, because you could proc sword spec and actually be able to get additional rage, be able to break through power word shield and then start generating rage again, which was like a huge part of if you wanted to go for that strategy. So if I was playing against a bunch of RMPs on ladder, maybe I would change my spec or something, but for the most part, you just go for well-rounded. And like on Warlock, I can't remember ever changing my ladder spec. I just kind of had like default specs, and I would play that, and maybe I would change a piece of gear or two, but it was mostly a tournament thing, because if you try to like optimize for some defensive setup, expecting RMP or whatever, and then you're playing against like some managing team like friggin' Warlock Hunter or Priest or whatever, you're going to be kicking yourself for not having a more balanced spec.
But is that where like set bonuses would come into play? That would add that other aspect of, if you had that 5-piece bonus or whatever, it would add that little bit of a change where you could maybe change up a talent or provide you something else? Or is that not as much of a deal?
Remember what were the set bonuses?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I can't remember.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I think that was very much like a healer thing, and like almost only a healer thing. Was like changing gear during arena. Like Alex talked about mana regen stuff. Like every druid had an innervate staff. At least when you went to tournament play, when priest got like they would swap to spirit staffs and things like that, right? So I think that was more of a healer thing. I don't really think a lot of people like got in game and swapped to a different set bonus or anything. I think you like customize based on like what you're trying to play. Like, do you want to have a couple PV pieces or whatever, and that sort of thing. But I think very few people actually like changed out like their set pieces in game, unless it was to like shadow resist or something like that, which was I thought really cheesy.
Okay.
So shadow resist, is this just like the best resistance that you can stack?
Well, it's just like basically make warlocks unable to play the game. Like you literally had to try to win with Searing Pain, right? Like you just sit there and spam Searing Pain.
It was horrible.
I do remember winning some games against people who stack shadow resist, like because they like the shadow resist gear had like no stats, right? It was like even the epic stuff is just like stamina and shadow resist and like nothing else, right? And a lot of people would wear like green sets where their like stats were just trash. But you couldn't really use a lot of shadow on them, but you could still just like win through mana, like by just like sitting there and they weren't doing much damage. So you just like spam mana drain their healer or whatever. There's things you could do, but in general, especially people who had insane PV gear, like if you played twos and you're playing Warlock and you played against a warrior who had PV gear, they'd just wear like Black Temple shadow resist gear and all the other pieces would be PV gear. And then their damage was just as good as if they were wearing PvP gear, pretty much. And you couldn't do anything to them, so you just lose the game, right? There's not really anything to it, and it was the same against Shadow Priests. So that was the only one I think people ever really stacked, because it was just like they were like warlocks are basically one damage type.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's neat. Because I never really thought about being able to mitigate other people's damage from playing WoW recently, but it's really interesting. So.
Yeah,
I don't think that'll happen
your
though.
spells just missed.
Yeah, I actually don't think that's an experience we'll have just because you don't know who you're playing against. That was like the thing is.
Can you
like,
not change gear during the arena though? Because people didn't know who they were playing against either. They just walk in and then they change their gear, right?
I don't think you can change your gear. I think you can
Yeah.
only change your weapon. You
Yeah,
can only change your weapon.
I think they're going with the last patch of BC, which prevented gear swapping during the match.
That's good. I think that's a good change because that was just garbage.
I remember talking to a person at BlizzCon, and they were saying how on their warrior they found, I want to remember how it went, but they had 2 different weapons on weapon speed, and so I'm going to botch this up, but they I may have been a little drunk, but they had a high speed weapon, and they would swap out for a low speed when they went, and so what it did is they had the high speed so they get the attack off, but then they swapped through, and it would pick up the stats on the low speed, which then they increased the amount of damage they did using the low speed weapon.
You're talking about like for like you're playing a warrior and you equip a high speed weapon to get rage, and then you equip your slow speed weapon for using your abilities.
Yeah, it was something like that. But
I think I know what he's saying. Like, because it didn't trigger a GCD for a while, so you would get your hit and then swap to a faster weapon, then get your hit, so it'd be more burst, right?
That sounds about right. Yeah. He just obliterated people by just swapping weapons back and forth.
The only actual like high level use of that I ever saw was poison swapping. I don't think warriors really did that much, to be honest, because for the most part it was just like you had one weapon that was better, right? Like maybe if you have like multiple weapons that are all the same or something, then there's some sort of optimal situation like that. But for the most part I never really saw it. But I did see some rogues would have like an offhand with mind numbing or whatever, and then or do double wound and one with crippling, and then they would like put on crippling, proc it, and they swap the double wound, try to stack it up, because there were strategies like that, like to try to combat abolish poison, because it was so hard to keep wound up if you just had one wound poison. So people would swap to double wound or do things like what Elliot and Alex were talking about, where you rely on someone else to put in snares for you. That's the only real weapon swapping for like melee for damage purposes. It was more about the poisons, at least that I remember.
Okay, I appreciate. Like I said, a casual conversation at the bar after BlizzCon, so a little fuzzy on the memory. So you guys were talking. You had some teams. There's not much. Back in the day, right? There's only like the 3-person comp, maybe the 4-person comp. People didn't really multiclass or whatever. Are we going to see some of the? It seems like right now in Shadowlands, the team compositions we're seeing on ladder and whatnot are fairly varied, if I'm not mistaken. Do you guys think we're going to see the same variants, or is it going to be down to like Rogue, Mage, Priest, WLD? I don't know. What are we going to be seeing on the ladder, do you think?
Go ahead.
I think there will be less variants personally, because I think because of the knowledge stuff, like you talked about. Like when I think about season 1, I remember one of the top ranked 2v2 and 3v3 teams that I played against on our battle group was a Hunter and Mage, and they played Hunter Mage 2s, and they were like near the top of the ladder, and there was Hunter Mage in 3s, and people just like didn't understand what to do against it and stuff, so they were able to be successful. But I feel like most people are just going to copy what they believe to be the most OP comps and roll those classes, I would assume.
Do you agree there, Ben?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I even tell people, like, you know what's going to be good. Like, we have one patch for the whole game. It's not a surprise what's going to be good in Season 1 and what's still going to be good in Season 4. Like, there's just certain specs. Like, you're not really... I don't know. Like, if you want to have, like, a pretty well-rounded experience, the thing is, like, I still believe that basically every spec in the game has, like, a gladiator playable comp. Like there is some comps, like even rep paladins can play with like a shaman, for example, where you can play like double healer rep paladin, as much as people meme on it, and it's actually good if you're a really good rep paladin, but you're not going to have that same level of flexibility. Like if you want to play a resto shaman, you're not going to be able to play with as many things as if you played a druid or if you played a priest. Even though there's going to be some comp options for you, yeah, you're kind of intentionally limiting yourself, and maybe you want to do that, and that's fine. But I mean, it's not a surprise. Like in Shadowlands, we don't know what's gonna happen in 9-1. Like Demon Hunters just got huge buffs. Like they'll probably be OP, but like who knows for sure. And you kind of have to take that guess, or at least like see how it plays out before you use it. With TBC, it's like we know. Like I just recommend people just play something that they think is going to be good and fun. And I don't know, if you're a boomkin, I consider also being a bit of a healer too, because deep boomkin I don't think is going to work out too well for you.
There might be some new stuff that comes out though. Like I heard that on private servers, like Ellie Shaman is really good in the meta. In 3v3 anyway, so I don't know. I think for the most part you guys are right, but I'm interested to see if there's going to be any like new comps that people theory crafted that no one had ever tried back in the day.
Some people are saying Rhett Shaman 2 is like really broken as well, apparently. And I don't remember literally ever playing that at high ratings back in the day.
It'll be interesting to see what comes out then, because I think truly that's what you're saying, is that the way the private servers have come in, they've really added another depth to this, because just years and years of experience.
Are they playing at the same patch though on the private servers, or comparable?
I don't know.
I think so.
There's also some comps that like weren't popular because they weren't really figured out early, right? Like Shadowplay is actually broken, but you had to have a Troll Shadow Priest for the healing debuff. And that was something that just like were no Troll Shadow Priests, right? So people didn't really figure it out. Sure. And who was it? I can't remember. Was that Collective played that with some people?
I think so. Yeah. They made that comp name.
Yeah. So like but it only really worked when you had a Shadow Priest that was Troll, right? So for tournaments it was fine, but like no one was playing this, so like anyone who tried it would have just thought the comp was garbage. So like there's things like that, but like now people will know, hey, if I want to play this thing, you have to have these races, and you have to have this setup. So like a lot of the stuff is kind of figured out. So it'll be interesting to see how it all like matches up at like a more, I don't know, high level or whatever, with everyone having knowledge. Because maybe the things that were the most OP then won't be as OP now. I don't really know. Like WLD was so broken for so many years, but maybe there's stuff that's been figured out that's like insane against it.
You just reminded me, racials are different. Just completely brain farted that. Just racials really matter.
A lot. Yeah.
I mean, like perception. Like, remember how broken that was?
Yeah, perception is crazy.
Yep.
I mean, the difference between like, even just there's a massive difference. Like being as a mage, like playing against a gnome warrior versus an orc warrior. If I run on an orc warrior and press a Nova on him, well, see ya. You can't play. You know what I mean? Like you're stuck. And if you do it to a gnome warrior, he just uses Escape Artist, and it's a completely different matchup. It's the same thing for like the priest. If you're an undead priest and a rogue's on you and he stacks up wound poison, well, the game's over. Like you're gonna die. But if you're a dwarf priest, well, I got stone form, and those poisons are gone, and now it's really easy for me to live. So there's definitely, I mean, games definitely will come down to the different types of racials that people have. It's a huge advantage in certain matchups.
So, looking at what we're seeing today and remembering what Burning Crusade was like, add-ons, UI differences. So my understanding, and I'm not sure if Alex, if you can add in on this or skip out on it, it's up to you. But my understanding is that because it's that translation of current UI plus the patch, there should be certain things that are actually still going to work as far as add-ons, such as weak auras and some of the UI elements in that. Assuming that stuff does still function in Burning Crusade, how much of a difference do you think that's going to make? And
that's interesting. I heard Arena 123 macros are working on beta.
Yep.
Which I believe is different. Weak auras, I don't know. Weak auras only recently became popular in Arena as a result of like the really fast pace of the game. I don't know if it'll really be necessary in BC. Like, what are you gonna weak aura, right? Like,
everything.
Like mace stun DRs, or like, I don't know.
Everything. You're gonna weak aura everything. Like,
you think so?
Oh, 100%. Like if you get any procs, like Azael was talking about, you get a meta gem proc, you're gonna have a giant icon on your screen that shows you have a fast cast. Like how long your stone form's gonna last. Like if you have Curse of Tongues on you, you're gonna put a giant Curse of Tongues in the middle of your screen, like little things
Dang.
like that. Yeah, people go crazy with weak auras,
It's
and they
the
will be
weak
in the
auras
game
are
100%.
good for sure, but like I just don't think it matters as much. Like all the stuff that you're saying, I felt like I had zero trouble tracking
Yeah.
by myself
Yeah,
as,
that's
as
true.
like a player, right? It's just more simple.
It-
Like everyone will use it and it will help people. And I mean, I just think it raises the floor, right,
Mhm.
instead of the ceiling, that sort of stuff. Whereas in Shadowlands, it's like it's so fast that it's like I'm playing against Alex here on his Moonkit, and I'm playing on my Warrior, and if I don't notice that he popped cooldowns, I'm instantly dead from full to 2-star
Yeah,
surges or whatever,
exactly.
right? And it's
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
didn't see it in a millisecond, and like pop Battlemaster and jump behind the pillar, and so I'm dead, right? And there's
Yeah.
like so much stuff like that. I didn't notice that Ven popped, popped like all his cooldowns as a
Combustion, yeah.
fire mage, right? Like he combusted and used all his stuff. It's like, okay, you're dead, right? And same thing for like Warriors. Warriors pop up my cooldown. I pop like Avatar and all my stuff, and like if people don't actually notice with like Warbreaker up on you, your damage is just like multiplied hundreds of times more. It's like insane, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in TBC, it's like when I think about cooldowns, it's like, oh no, the mage popped Icy Veins.
Yeah.
Well, it was more about like shatter combos and stuff, right? And like most comps didn't even have ways to actually deal with a lot of the cooldowns that are being popped. It wasn't as big of a deal, right? Like most of the comps I played, the only dispel was my Fell Hunter, and used it mostly defensively. Like maybe I would try to dispel an Innervate, or maybe I would try to dispel an Icy Veins and things like that. But a lot of times you need to save it for Novas and Polys and things like that for your teammates. So I think it's less important because there's not a bajillion cooldowns and a lot of it's less hidden, right? Like it's more obvious. He is casting a long Frostbolt, it will do damage. And that's one of the things that I like about it, is that it was more understandable
Same.
where damage was coming from, right? It's not like, like he, procced a trinket out his ass and then like, used the Kyrian ability and all this stuff. And it's like things that you don't really understand. It's like, why all of a sudden does this guy eviscerate me for 20k when that guy hits me for 5k? I don't really know.
Mhm.
Compared
Yeah.
to TBC, it's very understandable. It's like, oh, the Demo Warlock is casting a Soulfire. That's probably going to hurt. Oh, like Ven's about to shatter me and use his Pet Nova. That's going to hurt, right? Like it's just very understandable. So
Yeah.
I think the add-ons are much less of an advantage. They still help, of course, but
I mean, just to give like just some perspective, like back in the day, if you saw someone that was using like Gladiator Losa, which is basically the add-on where it like calls out everything like
Yeah.
Demon Soul, Combustion, because like you were seen as a giant noob. It's like, wow, this guy has no awareness whatsoever. Like, obviously this guy sucks. But now it's like,
Thanks, Ven.
you
That's
see
right at me.
Sea-Doo- You see Sea-Doo and Mez, some of like the best players in the game with the best awareness in the game. Mez literally created an add-on that creates random noises when cooldowns come up.
I
And
use that
it's
add-on, yeah.
It's because it's like Isaac said, if someone
Yeah.
uses Celestial Alignment and you don't notice, well, you lost. So if you didn't respond in 0.5 seconds to some instant cast stuff, then you immediately lose the game. Whereas back in the game, it was a lot simpler. Like, Warriors got controlled a lot, but if a Warrior was on you, you're going to die. And that's kind of just how it was. It's like, oh, I have a Warrior on me. Well, help, please. But for the most part, he's getting controlled. And it was a lot more obvious. And I've actually gotten that feedback a lot from people who watch my stream, that like just the watchability of TBC is like really high. It's like really easy for people to understand. I think it's why a lot of people also gravitate to like watching twos in Shadowlands. Like a lot of like 2v2 streaming at lower rating, like people like boosting their viewers or helping their viewers. Is really popular because I think for a lot of people it's really relatable and it's really easy to kind of understand what's going on.
Totally
Like
agree.
threes, it's like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, you kind of jump that over to the esports side of the aisle, and that makes a lot of sense because one of the biggest problems that we have, and Ven, you could probably teach me about this, is it's difficult as a caster to kind of break the game down at such a high pace with so much complexity going on and so many different nuances to where people can follow. Like it's so much easier to get tons of people engaged in caring about like a Counter-Strike Go tournament because it's obvious, right? Oh yeah, they planted the bomb. I know what's going to happen now. But in WoW, it's not exactly intuitive about all these cooldowns and all these kind of things, the perfect storm coming together. So I'm kind of curious to see if maybe a born again TBC esports or some kind of competitions might actually make somewhat of a comeback.
I mean, it'll definitely be interesting to see. I feel like there's almost a guarantee that there'll be like community-run tournaments and stuff like that. Like I have no doubt about that, and I'm kind of curious to see how well it does. I feel like at least at first people will be really excited and interested to kind of relive those experiences. But yeah, the question is like, how much depth and replayability is there? Because it is just going to be, it's not changing, right? Like it's just going to be same thing pretty much over and over. And I think maybe like gear differences, like when people do end up getting Warglaves or Storm Herald, or they can max out their resilience, or they get Void Star Talisman, all these different items. That ends up changing the meta, so just the gear along the way. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how much depth there really is there, because we'll have to wait and see. And I mean, it has been played out for a really, really long period of time. If you go back in Classic and a mage duels a warrior, the mage is going to win every time, and it's pretty much every single time. You're not going to see like a bunch of variants. So I'm curious to see if that holds true in TBC, or if people really have figured out like a ton of different strategies.
Indeed. Well, I think because we are kind of hitting a time wall here, I promise you guys a certain time. I would like to finish off with the one question we always like to ask everybody. This one's going to get a little weird for Alex, I'm not going to lie. So it's what we call the one thing you would change. And this is where you're sitting down with Ian Ozakostas, and he says, yo, no cost, no, like, doesn't matter how weird it is, doesn't matter how possible or impossible it is. What's one thing that you would change about Burning Crusade arenas? No holds barred, but only one thing.
I mean, the thing that comes to mind is just less RNG. I mean, I don't know if that counts as one thing, though, to be honest, because it's like there's a lot of different RNG things, right?
It's kind of big, but yeah, it's one thing.
That would be the thing for me. I mean, for me, the other thing maybe, and this is something not just TBC, I've wanted for like every year and every expansion ever in WoW, is full separation between PvP and PvE. As far as like, the classes are literally tuned differently for both, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just think that, like, and I've felt like that for like 15 years or whatever that Arena's been out, that would be such a huge change, as far as being able to have, they're not beholden to buffing an overpowered PvP class because it sucks in PvE, or vice versa, right? I think that would give the designers a lot more agency to have better class representation in both modes, PvE and PvP.
I like it. Andallyn, you got one on the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would change is I wanted to go back and play it, but I guess maybe I'll get an inkling of that. Looking forward to that, but it's hard for me to really kind of come up with anything other than that.
All right.
So I'm not going to try to speculate.
All right. Then?
Nerf SL Warlocks. Let's get it out of here. Master Demonology gone. That's good. That's good for me. I'm a simple man.
Oof. All right.
That's okay. I'll play Warrior.
Sounds good.
Alex.
I think for me, it kind of goes back to what Venruki was saying about like how everyone knows what's OP. Everyone has it all figured out. Like everyone wants to play Resto Druid. They're going to probably play WLD. They're all going to use Storm Herald. What if we could make little changes, that kind of push people to try the off-meta stuff? So like maybe just, little tweaks for what the most overpowered stuff was and the most underpowered stuff, and just kind of bring them together a little bit. That could be really healthy for BC, just to kind of refresh things. I think that's what private servers did. They kind of changed the numbers around, and they had seasons where they kind of updated things, and like that could be a direction that could be really cool for BC.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Gets into that replayability.
Yeah.
All right. So not just one thing, but just like little. It's one thing, but it's tweaking.
If I had to say one thing,
tweaks.
yeah, it would just be like probably just class balance changes, if you want to like describe it.
Okay.
Or item balance is probably even more important, honestly, because there were some real broken items, like we were talking about with Void Star Talisman, Storm Herald, 4-piece bonus for rogues. There were some really silly things
They're
that kind
awesome
of
though.
skewed stuff.
Well, I think the one thing I would change is I think SLSL Aflox was just a little too weak. I want them buffed. I want them to be a little bit more powered.
It died too easily.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely just double whatever the Soul Link damage reduction is. Just amp it up. You know.
Exactly. My
Ben's just disgusted.
so I did say that my original class was always a warlock, and then when I was in Burning Crusade there, I actually took a small break, and then I came back, and a friend of mine told me what SLSL was, and I just wreaked havoc then after that in random BGs. I felt like a god. And then I watched this person called Azael play it on arena live tournaments, and I realized just how much of a useless noob I was. But yeah, I want it back.
Yeah, I would be down for SL to SL just get deleted if Demo worked in threes, because Demo was way more fun too. I actually think Demo I had such a blast playing it in fives, but it just sucked in threes because everyone just, I don't know, your Felguard was like too easily kited and stuff. You know, the setup didn't matter as much.
Yeah, fair.
It's rough.
Well, thank you guys for that. I hope our listeners enjoyed that and gave them a good, both the rosy colored and also what to be aware of when Burning Crusade actually comes out. And for the 3 people that have already won the beta keys in chat, I hope you guys are downloading that right now and looking forward to you challenging Venruki over there on the betas. But so we're going to move into our upcoming PvP events. I think can you guys stick around, or do you guys need to dip?
I probably should hop out, but this was fun. Thank you guys for having me on for sure, and it's nice to chat about some old times with Alex and Elliot here. So yeah,
Absolute pleasure.
I think I will probably hop out, but thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Take care, Isaac.
Bye, Isaac.
Bye.
Too awesome. All right, I need to figure out which one was. I think that was him. Hey, I picked the right one. Yay.
Hey,
Okay.
cool.
It's like I knew what I was doing. All right. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next segment. This is our WoW PvP events. So this is where we're going to talk about the upcoming PvP events that we are aware of in the next few weeks. And just a reminder, if anybody in the community happens to know of something going on that we have missed, don't hesitate. Let us know. And again, I don't want to say the things again. If you want, go and find our links at the bottom of the show notes when we publish this, and let us know about something, if you're doing something or if you know something being done. So we got Andallyn Gaming, as always. He's doing his 5v5 arcade style, the 1v1 or Pokemon style, I guess. So he's constantly doing those. I try to retweet them when I can, but definitely keep an eye out on his Twitter at Dallorant_arogue. And Flark has gone back to doing his 3v3 tournaments. So that you're going to have to keep an eye on his Synergy Discord to see when he's doing those next. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the next one, he actually is also going to be sweetening the pot, not only just with some money, but he also has 10 beta keys to give away on that as well. Yeah. And this is a neat one. So the Oasis Community Discord is doing a non-gladiator tournament on the 30th of April. It's going to be non-glads only, random teams. So you just sign up as a free agent, and they will randomize teams from that. And have fun. I think they have it capped off to 20 teams, 3v3. So 60 players, give or take a bit. But like I said, it's non-glads. So if anybody has a gladiator title, it doesn't matter if you're playing on an alt or whatever. If you have a glad title, you can't play. So it's going to be...
Dang, I'm out.
Yeah. Sorry, Ben. I know. But I think it's really cool because it's going to be that lower bracket, the bracket, the playing style that a lot of us are pretty used to in that 1700 to 2K bracket, right? So, yeah. Only without the people with plus 30 eye levels to you smacking you around. So.
Yeah.
So on to some PvE things. The Keystone Masters, they're doing their Gauntlet tournament on the 8th to the 9th of May. Diabolus is back with their Death Bowl. This is going to be North America again. It's going to be the 13th to the 14th of May. So those are the times when they're actually broadcasting. I'll have some links in the show notes. You can go find them over on Twitter or whatever. But their signups are on right now. So put your team together and go sign up and have fun with that. This one I'd actually missed for a while. The Bloodlost.io Spanish website is hosting another Mythic Plus tournament with £3,000 prize pool. So
That's really good.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they've already gone through all the qualifiers and all the time trials and everything. So this is going to be the actual just streamed broadcast from the 14th to the 16th of May. And I'm pretty excited for that. I like seeing all these little community MDI style tournaments. They're pretty cool. So
Definitely.
Yours. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to carry on doing the PvP Pet Battle Tournament. Next one's scheduled for the last Saturday in May 29th. It's tentative. So if you play Pet Battles and you want to give it a shot, it's really simple. Just have a 3-pet team and take your shot at some of the other people in NA and EU. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the PTR plays along this time. So we'll see.
So, Gerissar, I do have, before you move on, I do have one other thing that we can throw in here.
Okay.
The folks over at Matcherino are partnering up with G Fuel to bring to you an RBG style tournament, which actually looks really interesting. They're going to be putting that on May the 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. I know there's going to be some teams that are hosted by none other than Des Mephisto, Ferrix, Savix is going to be hosting a team. So definitely worth checking out. Looks really awesome. So
nice. I always like a good RBG tournament. I haven't.
And Magnus. So yeah, it's looking interesting. So
nice. There's so few and far between. Oh, I wish there was more.
Yeah. Well, it all begins at some point. So.
All right. Well, hopefully it takes off even further. Let's see here. Oh, and then of course there's the Blizzard tournaments, right? I think you know about one of them there, Venruki, I think.
I think so. I think there's a big one coming up. I mean, basically, all the work all these teams have done throughout the entire year comes down to this weekend. So, yeah, it should be good. It's Saturday and Sunday. I personally am really looking forward to it. Four best teams in each region going to be duking it out to see who's top dog in each spot. And, yeah, I actually can't wait for it because we've been following these teams for basically the entirety of Shadowlands. And curious to see who walks away with the championship title.
Me
Any
as well.
hot take?
I've given my predictions a few times. In North America, I actually think anyone could win.
Yeah.
I actually don't see a favorite team. I think all four have a good shot. So I think it's going to be kind of who rises to the occasion. Same thing in Europe. I mean, all the teams are so close, but I'm going with kind of an underdog pick in Europe. Maybe not the smart thing to do, but sometimes, I go for those bold predictions. I think Reload Esports, the Vallejo and Shadow Priest, they've been looking really, really good. So that's kind of my pick to win it all.
I like it.
How about you there, Alex?
Probably expecting Cloud9 to do really well, just from what I've seen in NA. I haven't been keeping too much track of the EU games, to be honest with you. It seems like the Mage Shadow Priest comps are doing really well there, so it seems like the Wizard Cleaves are the most successful, and I think I'd expect them to do the best, but we'll see. I'm excited to see how it goes.
Me too. Can't disagree. NA definitely seems like an NA team's game. EU, I think Skill Capped has it on lock, so we'll see. So following up that, we have the Relegation Cup. So that's going to go into Season 2. So the signups for that is open. Again, there's no cutoff. Anybody can sign up and play. And that's going to stream on the 14th to the 17th of May. And this other one, this is a neat one. A slight twist to the mythic, the MDI, is the Great Push. So if I understand this correctly, it's going to be a push of keys. So they're going to start off with a key, and then the teams are going to have to just keep pushing it to as high as they can get. So rather than, so I guess because the MDI, they have just a standard key with set different affixes depending whatever, but this is they're going to be given a key and they just have to see how high they can get it. So I don't know all the details, but either way, it looks different and it looks cool. So all right.
Yeah, for sure.
I think. All right. And then last but not least is the PvP news. There's been a lot of news going on. There's a lot of stuff coming out lately. So as I said, Flark, he's doing his Synergy tournaments. So he had one that just happened back on the 19th of April, sorry. And I want to say congrats to McNabber, Loss, and Scratch Bless for taking first place on that. And big kudos to the community. When Flark announced it, he had a $150 prize pool, and by the tournament time, there was a $1,200 prize pool. So I think that's pretty cool. Again, the ABC circuit finished, so we got Method NA, Method EU, Cloud9, Golden Guardians, OTK, Skill Capped, Reload Esports, and Creed all playing for that first place on each side. And kudos to them for making it through the 8-team circuit down to the top 4 and making it to the global finals. And then also, speaking of global finals, the MDI global finals happened just last weekend, and the Echo Guild took first place on that. So that's their first back-to-back win for the Mythic Dungeon International. So kudos to them. I am totally, Creed is awesome to watch. I can't wait to see what Drainer and Trend come up with.
Yeah.
Pretty excited.
It is.
It's
always something. I'm always like, yes, I'm so ready for this matchup. So
Yeah, I'm hoping we see more Demon Hunter Fire Mage. The Diablo Cleave. It looks solid.
Is that what we're calling it? I love that.
I like that. It's so fitting.
It's a demon and a fire mage. I mean, what else could it be?
It was so true. The kill potential was just out of nowhere. It's just insane.
Yep.
Oh,
the hunt is no joke. That's for sure.
Yeah. And then you get to fake cast it. Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually a bit troll. I'd rather just be an instant cast. So I don't know. I'd rather just get wiped out when it happens than have
Are people doing that?
Yeah,
they're fake casting it now.
Well, yeah, it's because if you don't block, you're dead. So it's kind of troll, you know. If you're 50% health and they're casting hunt, you have to have like superhuman reflexes to actually like you. It's not possible if they're in like melee range, so you kind of have to like pre-block it before it hits you. But then they just fake it. So yeah, it's definitely it's rough to play against.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw it happening, when Shadowlands first came out, and I saw it on some streams, and yeah, it was almost sick just watching a person fake cast hunt, and they went through they went through some kicks and everything else, just trying to get through it all, and then all of a sudden just push the button actually and kill the person.
You get to just go fishing for cooldown.
Exactly. So just rapid fire hot fixes. I didn't see anything that was PvP centric really. Did you guys see anything in the hot fixes?
I don't think so. Really. Haven't been looking.
Oh. You're too busy playing PC.
Pretty much, yeah. This last week I've just been I've reverted back to my 18-year-old self. Just kind of being a degenerate in the basement playing TBC all day long. Yeah. It's been fun. It's been really fun.
I am a little jealous. I guess that's the one thing they have listed is that the War Banner won't interrupt the party members' channeled cast anymore. I don't know if it's a small bug, I guess, but nothing game breaking, I guess. 9.1 PTR is updating, so I guess the only thing really there has been the season 2 PvP gear and how it has the plus 13 eye level scaling in PvP where it goes up when you're actually in PvP. And I know there's a bunch of PvP talents that have been trickling in as they keep doing patches. So I'd say keep your eyes open on the data mining as it comes up. And if you happen to be on the PTR, go play it, check it out, and please give your feedback so that the devs can adjust accordingly. So, that's all I'll say about that. It's I think there's a bunch of other stuff already being said all throughout the interwebs about people's thoughts on all this stuff. So, honestly, some of the PvP talents look kind of cool and refreshing. Some of them, I don't know how many mortal strikes we need across all the classes, but we'll see. We'll see how it works out. Who knows?
I'm a fan of it, to be honest with you. Like, I'll tell you the reason why I like it. Because I think in Shadowlands in particular, there's a lot of healing. So people have a lot of like passive self-healing, and a lot of games, as a result of all that healing, come down to dampening. So I think it's good that they're kind of giving dampening to the players, almost in a sense. So instead of relying on the game, because there's certain matchups I play on my Frost Mage where it feels like if I'm not in dampening, my damage doesn't matter, and it's like the first 5 minutes of the game are almost irrelevant. But then when dampening kicks in, the intensity of the match comes in, and it becomes really, really fun to play, and it's awesome. But you kind of need that healing reduction because there's a lot of powerful self-healing. So I'm a big fan that they're adding more healing reduction to the players to actually control over, as opposed to just this thing that happens as the game goes on. So I like it a lot personally.
Actually, that makes sense. I didn't think about it that way. Of course, I haven't really put too much thought into it. I just know, seeing some of the patch notes, I'm like, Mortal Strike. Oh, what? Yeah, so I was a little taken back by it, but now you put it that way, it makes sense. It's some good context.
Would these stack really at all? Because I mean, if you're adding more Mortal Strikes, but there's already Mortal Strikes that are already present, is it really providing you any net effect?
Well, it's more for composition. So like, I'll give you a perfect example. In the AWC, we've seen people run like a Feral Fire Mage Priest, and that's a composition that has a lot of control, has good damage, but you don't have a Mortal Strike. So there's some matchups that automatically go to dampening because you just can't out-damage the healing. So now that Feral Druids have Mortal Strike, you're basically just starting in 25% dampening. So I think it will just end up speeding up games. And hopefully if that happens for enough classes, then healing just gets lowered and games are just faster in general.
Gotcha. So this is just kind of filling in the gaps, really, on the
yeah.
So, but if let's say you do Demon Hunter, Arms Warrior, then, and both have a Mortal Strike, does that start the game at 50% dampening?
No, it doesn't stack. No. Yeah. Only when Sharpened Blade's up.
That would be sick.
Yes, the fattest Sharpen you've ever seen.
Oh my gosh.
Right, take us out of there, Gerissar.
Okay, last couple items. I saw over on the Skill Capped WoW Discord that they're seeking arena gameplay VODs so they can analyze, and they're going to give feedback through their own content. So, hey, if you happen to want some high-quality feedback on your gameplay and don't mind it being put up on YouTube afterwards, go over to the Discord and check it out. There's a link over there, and you fill out a form and give them the information. So I think that's a win-win, personally. Also, other things out there in the community, Ian Hazakostas has been doing a bunch of dev interviews. In fact, he just talked to Preach earlier today.
I actually listened to all that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I went for a walk. I like to go for walks and listen to YouTube videos, so I listened to the entire thing.
Nice.
For a walk, yeah.
I caught half of it live, but I wasn't able to pay attention to the whole thing. So, the one I don't remember him talking about it during Preaches, but it was in another one. He was asked up front about the whole solo queue, and he did say that there's no plans to put solo queue in 9.1. But they're going to look more at improving the group finder systems. So,
yeah,
I think I have that right. Anyway,
I think that's a good direction to go in.
I think so.
It is interesting. Like, remember what Azael was saying about how he met all his friends because you had to make a team?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there is something to be said for that.
So just since this is in the spirit of the Burning Crusade, one thing that I've really been enjoying about the Burning Crusade is going to a location to queue. I really like that. Although it's not as convenient, going over to like the queue master or whatever they're called, and seeing all the other players that are playing, Like, I go to the Queuemaster and I get to see like, oh look, there's Hydra. That's so cool. Oh my god, Sam I Am and Snuts are playing, and like, oh, that's HRK. Oh, I heard about that guy. He's really good. And I see people that aren't on my friends list, and I ask them to play. I'm like, oh, this guy looks like, he's a rogue, and he looks like his gear is good. Like, I'm gonna message him and see if he wants to play. And I think kind of having like that MMO experience and having like PvPers having to like kind of congregate together. I mean, it used to be Gerissar and Classic, and then it's the Queuemaster and the Burning Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
That's a place where you can find people to queue with, and I feel like that's something that could maybe get reintroduced, even though it does take away that convenience element. It's still, I think, cool.
That's really interesting. I like that.
Well, I'll be honest, I think it's a lot more convenient to queue up that way than flying all the way to an instance in somewhere on a world map to like we had to do for BGs and that. So I'd rather queue up I'd rather go to a Battle Master and queue up to like Battle Master than have to fly halfway across the map. Yeah. Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry. One last item. This one was really cool. I saw this on D Machine's Twitter. So they're going to be doing some interviews during the finals, and they're asking people what questions they should ask players. So if you go over to D Machine's Twitter, I'll have a link for the tweet in the show notes as always. But if you respond to that with your thoughts, then he will try to get an answer for you. So I think that's pretty cool. A little crowdsourcing of questions.
Yeah, my favorite questions, because sometimes they set up like interviews for us to talk to the players on like the LAN tournaments, and I always find it, like for me, my favorite questions to ask people are non-WoW related questions. Like, you get to know the players on like a more personal level. Some of them are studying for their PhD, which I think is really cool. They're like professional chess players on the side or whatever, and those are the questions that I really, really like asking. So I hope some people out there ask the players those, because I think it's fascinating to see what people do with their lives outside of the game.
Indeed. I'd ask you, Ven, but I know it's going hiking in the mountains. So
yeah, I'd like that. Been a little lazy lately, but I got something planned for Thursday. So.
Oh, nice. Well, I just want to say on a personal note, I do appreciate you posting those on your Instagram and up on Twitter, because
same.
Cool.
Beautiful spots.
I'm glad. Yeah. I think we could all use a little bit more beauty in our lives,
Oh, of course.
Great.
All right. Shout outs. Alex, do you have any shout outs to anybody you want to give?
No, not really.
Too nice.
I'm gonna give a shout out to your cats for giving a little show there when they.
They're cool.
They're sleeping.
Wow.
Wow, you need to wake them up, dude. It's like you
I
can't
thought you
let
were hyper. What?
you can't let your kids go to bed too early, because then they wake up at 2 a.m. when you're trying to sleep.
This is the only time they've been sleeping in the last like 24 hours, so I'm lucky right now.
Perfect.
That's no wonder they get up at 5 o'clock and run around.
Yeah.
They're laying there dreaming like, man, all this TBC talk is really hitting me in the feels right now.
Ben, do you have any shout outs?
There's lots of people I should shout out, but I want to shout out Sodah, longtime friend, the person I used to compete with. Happy to be here and have these conversations with you, and then of course Isaac as well. It was really fun, and of course you two as well. But it was really nice to get to shoot the shit with Alex and Isaac again.
It was our pleasure. You guys made this all worthwhile.
Yeah.
Andallyn. Oh, sorry. Andallyn, do you have anybody you want to shout out?
Yeah, I want to shout out to everyone in chat who's just been enjoying this experience. You guys have been having some great interactions with each other. Thank you so much for just being part of the community, even just for tonight. Congratulations if you won a WoW or a beta key. That's super excited. We're big congrats from all of us. Thanks, Ketra, for helping us, with everything on that regard. And we hope that maybe you come and tune in again to the show. We'd love to have you back here. We love talking PvP, and we love being able to encourage and incorporate your interactions into the show. It just makes it organic and just a great experience for everybody involved. So thank you so much.
Indeed. And I want to give a quick shout out to all the people that are Patreon for the Warcraft Radio Patreon. because through you guys, you help support what we do, as well as all the other content creators over at warcraftradio.com. So thank you, everybody. And let's finish this up. Let's get into the outro. Ven, where can people find you in case they don't know? On the interwebs, not at home.
Yeah.
In the mountains.
Yeah, the mountains of Alberta. But twitch.tv/Venruki and youtube.com/Venruki and twitter.com/LAVenzel and instagram.com/Venzel. And that's it. Those are the 4 ones.
Awesome. That's definitely the 411. All right. Sodah, where can people find you if they do you want to be found?
Twitter's probably the best place. It's just my name, Alex Ringe. And you can follow me on TikTok too. I post cat videos at Sods, S-O-D-E-Z.
That's what the internet is for, after all, right? So
It's all about the cat videos.
I think so.
I love it. Andallyn, how about you tell people where they can find us?
absolutely. You can visit the Warcraft. Sorry, you can contact us directly with a tweet to at technically_PvP, or you can email us at technicallypvp, one word, at gmail.com. Also, please join our discussions on the Warcraft Radio Discord. We've got multiple channels, and we have our own Technically PvP channel where you can discuss any topic you want with us directly in there.
Indeed. And if you visit the Warcraft Radio website, you'll also find a podcast directory there with us and many other great shows, not just the ones under Warcraft Radio. And on there is also a review system. So, hey, go over there, give people reviews, tell them what you think of their shows. And again, I'll put those links in the show notes. I want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll chat with you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And I need to click the button because I'm in charge of this, which is scary.
Yes.